Welcome back to Football Daily, and with this week's XI, we're going to be looking at 11 players who were the biggest waste of money. Goalkeeper, Petr Cech. 14 million euros might not seem much for a goalkeeper now, but when Arsenal stumped up the cash for Petr Cech in 2015, it made the Chelsea man the 11th most expensive keeper ever, and the second costliest for a Premier League club. In return, it was claimed by John Terry among others, the Gunners would be getting around 15 points a season, enough to give them a title shot. That's not how it turned out in the slightest. While Cech had two decent campaigns at Arsenal, the defensive mess under Arsene Wenger made his signing basically pointless, as the club allowed 44 goals in the 2016-17 season, then the second worst tally of the Frenchman's tenure. And then the next year, things got even more depressing, as Cech underperformed according to expected goals for the first time since 2011, this time letting in an incredible 51 in the Prem, a tally not seen for the London side since the 1983-84 season. Meanwhile, Lukas Fabianski and Wojciech Szczesny, both sold by Arsenal for pennies, are still excellent stoppers, with Szczesny joining Juventus in 2017 and winning a first title, while Cech has humiliated himself trying to play out from the back. Good work all round. Defender, Alvaro Zola. An unusual entry into RXI, Alvaro Zola would have been a great addition for almost any club in Europe in the summer of 2018, just not Real Madrid. The young Spaniard, who at 22 already has 4 caps for Spain, one more than Hector Bellerin, joined a side in need of reinforcement, but not at right back, where they boast Dani Carvajal, probably the best in the world in his position. While Zola racked up 4 league assists to Carvajal's 2 in 2017-18, Carvajal made more chances, completed more dribbles and won the ball back for his side almost 4 times per match to Zola's 2. He is only 26, meaning that he's unlikely to suffer a drop in performance anytime soon, and with Nacho in the squad, who can also cover at fullback, it's hard to see why Los Blancos prioritised that position at a cost of around 35 million euros, especially with the departures of Cristiano Ronaldo and Mateo Kovacic, leaving them light in midfield and attack. Certainly not a bad signing, Zola just seems a strange one for a club entering a world without CR7. Defender, Victor Lindelof. It might seem like we're calling this one early. Victor Lindelof has only been at United for 1 full season, and at 24 he has plenty of time to learn and improve. But the Swede was a Mourinho signing, featured as the perfect partner for Eric Bailly in a new-look United back line, until he was relegated to the bench, making just 13 starts in his maiden season with the Red Devils. Now, not all signings work out immediately, but since the defender swapped Benfica for the bench, Mourinho's relationship with United's board has broken down, meaning that if Lindelof does come good, it's likely to be under a different manager. And it's hard to see what made the club shell out over 35 million euros on him. Last year he ranked 17th in the United squad for tackles per game and 14th for interceptions, while his reputedly excellent passing only produced 2 accurate long balls a match, the same as Alexis Sanchez. Now in Mourinho's 3rd season, Lindelof will have to have a stellar campaign to rebuild his reputation and save his manager. Defender, Mangala. As much as critics of Manchester City like to attack their spending, the Sky Blues have rarely missed on an expensive signing. But Mangala, bought for close to 40 million euros in 2014, has been the exception to the rule. The Frenchman, then 23, had impressed at Porto alongside Nicolas Otamendi, but on switching to the Prem, looked clumsy and out of his depth. He still made 64 appearances over his first 2 seasons in the UK, thanks to injuries to other defenders, but in that time, his cost rose, as it emerged that City also had to buy out 2 companies who owned 40% of Mangala's playing rights, bringing his total to nearly 50 million euros. Loans to Valencia and Everton failed to reignite Mangala's career, and at 27, having gone without a call-up to the national team in 2 years, he's unlikely ever to fill his potential. Defender, Yuri Pachichi. Yuri Pachichi would have been an embarrassing acquisition for PSG if the French club hadn't managed to sell the Spaniard onto Athletic Club for a profit after a single year. The Parisians spent 16 million euros on Yuri and got 32 appearances out of him in all competitions before sending him back to the Basque Country for 24 million euros. Now 28, Yuri is certainly a wiser long-term option than Nacho Monreal, who Athletic had pursued for the 3 previous summers, but he's hardly likely to be a game changer for a team which came in 16th last season. The Lions' defence was already decent, with only 6 sides in the Liga conceding fewer goals than them in the 2017-18 campaign, but they struggled in attack, ranking 14th of 20 for goals scored in the division. However, Athletic spent money on just 3 players in the summer of 2018, and all of them were defenders, putting them in genuine danger of a first relegation from La Liga if someone doesn't step up. As one of only 3 clubs never to have dropped out of the top tier, it would be sad if Bilbao lived to regret spending their kitty on Yuri. Midfielder, Gregor's Cryovac. Once among the best coveted defensive midfielders in Europe, Gregor's Cryovac must wonder where it all went wrong. I'll tell you mate, going to West Brom. The Pole was long used as an example of Monchi's eye for talent at Sevilla, joining the Andalusians from Reims in 2014 for just €5.5 million, and winning a pair of Europa League titles as well as making La Liga's Team of the Season in his first campaign. When Unai Emery left for PSG, he took his midfield lieutenant with him, handing his old club a €22 million profit, but Cryovac struggled to make the transition. Sevilla had averaged under 50% possession in his last season in Spain, allowing him to play his natural destructive game, but PSG had nearly 62% of the ball, and Cryovac couldn't adjust. While Thiago Motta and Verratti put up around 90 passes a match, Cryovac only managed around 55, making him less involved in play than left-back Maxwell. The midfielder ended up playing just 868 minutes for the Parisians in the only league campaign they didn't win since 2012, making each minute he appeared cost around €37,000. Cryovac went on to get relegated with West Brom on loan in 2018, and is now washed up and in exile with Lokomotiv Moscow at only 28 years old. Midfielder, Jefferson Lerma. Eddie Howe knew his midfield needed a rethink going into the 2018-19 season. 3 Premier League teams conceded more goals than the Cherries last year, but only Stoke allowed more expected goals, and as a result, Howe went into the transfer market and picked up Colombian midfielder Jefferson Lerma from Levante for €25 million. As a general rule, players on teams with less possession make more tackles and interceptions because they have more opportunities. But despite that, Lerma made only around 4 tackles and interceptions a game last season, in a team which had the ball under 45% of the time, the 3rd lowest figure in La Liga. And when you compare Lerma's output to the other defensive midfielders joining the Prem, the picture gets even worse. Fulham signed Andre Frank Anguissa, who at 22 is a year younger than Lerma, cost €3 million less, and won the ball nearly 6 times a game, while Brighton paid only around €17 million for 21-year-old Bissouma, who had the same defensive numbers and completed around 3 dribbles a game. After big financial swings on Tyrone Mings, Jermaine Defoe and Max Gradel, Lerma could be Eddie Howe's latest money pit. Midfielder, Davy Klaassen. When Everton spent over €140 million in the summer of 2017, many tipped the Toffees for a top 6 finish. But we at Football Daily pointed out that Sigurdsson, Rooney and Davy Klaassen would all want to play in the same position. And as expected, the wheels came off the wagon. The club dropped to 18th after 10 games and went on to spend another €40 million in January to dig their way out. Klaassen has since departed for Werder Bremen, bringing back half of the €27 million Ronald Koeman spent on him. The Dutch midfielder, who previously captained Ajax and scored 1 in 3 for the Amsterdam Giants, played only 820 minutes in the 2017-18 campaign, filling in as a defensive midfielder, an attacking midfielder and even as a winger. So it's perhaps unsurprising that he failed to score during his time in England, registering a single assist in the blue shirt, as he found himself behind 19-year-old Tom Davies in the pecking order. A huge come down for a man who got 9 assists and 13 goals in his last year in his homeland. Now freed of the shackles of Allardyce football, we hope Klaassen can regain his form, but Everton are never getting back their money. Forward, Lazar Malkovich. When he joined Liverpool in 2014, Serbian winger Lazar Malkovich had won 3 consecutive league titles, in his homeland and in Portugal with Benfica. The then 20-year-old cost the Reds £20 million, making him the club's 5th most expensive signing ever at the time, and he remains 16th on the list, embarrassing given that he hasn't played for them since 2015. Markovic has gone on loan 3 times, to Fenerbahce, Sporting CP and Hull City, and in that time he scored just 5 league goals, the same number he managed in his single season in Portugal. In all, he played 34 times for the Reds, but the majority came as a substitute, with his appearances adding up to under 1900 minutes, or roughly £10,655 a minute. All this meant that Liverpool fans were relieved when the club hammered out a £3 million deal to take the wide man to Anderlecht in the summer of 2018, only to see the 24-year-old raise his wage demands and torch the deal. With a year left on his contract, he'll finally depart Anfield in 2019, in the process making Andy Carroll look like a good value for money. That's to say the least. Forward, Alexis Sanchez. Perhaps you're thinking that United are the ones who wasted money on Alexis Sanchez, and with a reported wage of $500k a week, that would be understandable. But the Chilean makes our side because of the way he left Arsenal, with the Gunners costing themselves a fortune in the process. United, Bayern Munich and Man City were all interested in Sanchez in the summer of 2017, and Arsene Wenger could have sold him for around £60 million, giving the club a substantial war chest to find a replacement. But Wenger failed to secure a swap deal for Raheem Sterling or a misguided swoop for Thomas Lemar, meaning that Arsenal kept a player with under a year left on his contract. And instead of taking money for the forward in January, when Mourinho came back in for the star, Arsenal swapped him for Henrik Mkhitaryan. Hardly a bad player, but definitely inferior, and 29, and set to earn $200k a week with the Londoners until 2021, when he'll be 32. If they'd just let Sanchez leave 6 months earlier, Arsenal could have jump-started their squad rebuild and saved themselves some cash. Forward, Andre Ayew. It's hard to imagine one side wanting to pay €24 million for Andre Ayew, but two did, just 18 months apart between 2016 and 2018. Swansea, who had picked the Ghanaian up on a free from Marseille, seemed to have had a windfall when West Ham offered a huge fee for the forward in the summer of 2016, after he'd scored 12 and assisted 2 in his first year in Wales. But London didn't agree with Ayew, as it doesn't with the majority of West Ham forward signings, as he went on to be involved in just 13 league goals in the next year and a half, a team-wide slump seeing Slaven Bilic depart and David Moyes getting the head coach job. However, in January 2018, with relegation looming, Swansea went into full panic mode and offered West Ham the same fee they'd paid for the striker, even though he was 28 by that time. A record of 0 goals in his 12 appearances was enough to send the Swans back to the Championship, and Ayew will spend the 2018-19 campaign on loan at Fenerbahce, as Graham Potter's outfit couldn't afford his wages, during which time his value will decrease still further, a cautionary tale for all Premier League strugglers. I hope you guys have enjoyed that XI, and if we've missed anyone else who you thought was a big waste of money, let us know in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this, why not check out the video on screen, hit me up on my socials at ZachJellib on Instagram and Twitter, and as always guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Oh, and turn the bell on, you get notifications every time we upload a video, which is every day. Football Daily, makes sense.